So we now have a time for a little bit of exploration of the idea of, we'll see. First of all, I'd like to ask you all a question. I'd like to ask you, what am I doing? Or if you saw someone doing that, what are they doing? Come on, no one who knows the answer. Someone said meditation with mudra. The mudra is correct. What I'm doing is called chin mudra, with the fingers, the hands. But factually, all you can really know is that I'm sitting on a chair with my hands in a mudra. That's all you can, with my eyes closed. That's all you can truly say, right? That's all you truly know, because as Nathan said, I might just be thinking of chocolate. So this is why we want to explore tonight a little bit. What is meditation? When you hear the word meditation, or if there's a graphic, a picture in a yoga magazine or online in a yoga, or even in the newspapers, or some kind of media. And when they're talking about meditation, usually they will have a picture of something like this. But because I have a short chair, I can't cross my legs. But it will be someone with their legs crossed, maybe in half lotus or full lotus, and they will have their chin slightly tucked, their eyes will be closed, not open, and their hands could be in chin mudra or Vishnu mudra or some other hand posture, hand asana. And then we think, this is what meditation is. So I'd like to ask you, when you hear the word meditation, does that come to mind? What image comes into your mind? And when you think of meditation, what is meditation? I'd like to this is not an exam. It's not like, you don't get a meal if you get the answer wrong or you're not invited back or anything like that at all. This is just generally, there's no right, I'm not looking for a right or a wrong answer. I'm just looking for someone who would say, meditation is this. This is my understanding of what meditation is. Anyone other than John game to say something?
Food for the soul.
Food for the soul. Anyone else? Letting go. Calm mind. Did someone say calm mind? How about an empty mind? Quiet mind. So I said John wasn't allowed to answer. Observing what is. What? Say again? Observing what is as it is. So let's explore a couple of these ideas, and let's explore what's these different, what would you say, ideas of what meditation is. So in my own journey, I was fortunate to come across meditation somewhere around about 1975. And in that journey, I've explored and tried a variety of different practices, which you can see, we're called meditation. And I've been trying to pass on the practice of meditation since about 1986, teaching people meditation, exploring yoga wisdom. So many people who come to meditation, a lot of people, the reason they come is to deal with stress, is to deal with, trying to calm the mind, to have peace of mind, because the mind is driving them crazy. Have you ever experienced that? How your mind can drive you crazy? We all have that experience. So sometimes there is an initial idea that because the mind is full of so much negativity, let me put it that way, so many things which have a negative impact on our life, fears, worries, anxieties, frustrations perhaps. Many different things are there in the mind. And because we are living with our mind 24/7, then those things are there with us constantly. Have you noticed they never go away? They can be even there gnawing at us in sleep. Even when things are going well, relatively speaking, in our life, what will the mind do and what will it say? It will go, yeah, it's all okay now, but what if this happens? So the mind is constantly undermining our experience of life. Or is that just me? Does anyone else have something like that going on with their mind? 2 or 3 of us do. The rest of you are very fortunate. And I'd like to have a word with you during the meal, perhaps. So the mind is undermining our experience of life. Always worrying, jumping from one thing to another. It's always proposing different plans for the future. To do this, if you do this, this will bring about the satisfaction that you are looking for. And then we do that, what the mind is proposing. In other words, the desires in the mind. And then we do it, and it might be okay, but it doesn't satisfy me. So then the mind says, don't worry, I have another plan. That one didn't work out so well, but this next one, I guarantee you, this one will work for sure. And what do? Great. Cool. Let's do it. And then we do it. And maybe it was okay, or maybe it was not. Maybe it was actually a horror show that my mind got me into. Again, why are you staring at me blankly? You guys haven't been through this? Have I had a very extraordinarily difficult life or something? I don't think so. I think all of us have a mind very similar to what I'm describing. I don't need to go on any longer in this vein. I'm sure you understand, the idea that I'm trying to get to. So from this point, and this was my beginning introduction to meditation, well, obviously the mind is driving me crazy. It's undermining my life. It's lying to me. The mind lies to me about where satisfaction and happiness is to be found. So let me empty the mind. Let me get rid of all of these negative thoughts which are bothering me. So then meditation becomes the quest to still the mind and to empty the mind. Has anyone tried this emptying the mind? A couple of people, and the rest are very shy. So what kind of success do we have in emptying the mind? Why empty the mind? Basically, in meditation, why? Basically the same reason that we smoke dope, take drugs, binge watch Netflix, and walk up to our fridge and open the door and eat more than actually our body needs for nutritional input. It's the same reason. Drinking, drugs, binge watching, all of these things are trying to achieve the same thing. It's trying to forget problems. It's trying to run away from the problems. It's actually being distracted and not aware of this troubled mind. You may or may not accept that, but actually, if you look at it, this is actually what happens. While I'm engaged in binge watching something, then my mind is absorbed in that. Right? So therefore, while I'm doing that, I may not be temporarily aware of those things which were, worrying me in the mind. Can anyone understand relate to what I'm saying? So therefore, the goal of meditation becomes to empty, still, to calm the mind so it's not moving. These thoughts are not flowing through the mind and bothering me. A good friend of mine described this attempt as being like you have a bucket full of water and you're going to empty the bucket, right? So the bucket is analogous to the mind and it's full of so much stuff. So, maybe we'll use the analogy of water for now. So you're going to empty the water out of the bucket, empty the mind. And then the bucket is empty, right? Right? No. It's now full of air. So the bucket is still full of something. Or even to take it to another level, this attempt to empty the mind, because these thoughts are bothering me, is like having a bucket full of water and I'm underwater and I'm going to empty the bucket. Right? Bucket full of water, I've got a ladle, I'm going to empty the bucket of all the water, but I happen to be underwater. So in other words, as we try to remove the thoughts from the mind, they are instantly replaced by other thoughts. Is that understandable? And have you can experience that in your practice if you try to empty the mind. So this is futile. This will not bring about the desired result, inner peace, calmness, etc., satisfaction, etc., etc. So let's go to another example, which is we do here. We've already done here this evening, and it is part of many spiritual traditions, such as yoga. It's there in the yoga practice. It's there in Buddhist practice, in other practices as well. It's called mindfulness. Mindfulness. So in other words, we're not going to empty the mind. We're not going to, the first option is I'm getting swept away by all of the stuff in the mind, and this is causing me grief. So then the next step is let me empty the mind. Okay, well that didn't work either. So following my desires and the thought in the feelings in the mind doesn't bring about peace, happiness. Trying to empty the mind is not possible, like emptying water out of a bucket while being underwater. So now a better step, a much better result comes about by stepping back from the mind, from the thoughts, and not engaging with them at all. Everyone's aware this is the practice of mindfulness. So this has many, many benefits. It can help us greatly in our journey in life. We won't go into all of them in depth, but one of the main things it helps us to understand, or it gives us, one of the main benefits it gives us, is that it gives me space, it's described and can be experienced. It gives me space between stimulus and my response to those stimuli. You understand what I'm saying? The stimulus may be external. Someone says something which makes me angry. When they say or do something, it disturbs me. I become disturbed. Has that ever happened to you? Has anyone ever said anything to you that has disturbed you? I'd say every one of us. Thousands of times. Because people are just such idiots. Right? Not us, but it's them. It's all those other people. So sometimes, or perhaps regularly, our response is to go, well, right? Straight back at you. Double. When you're a kid, double back at you. Whatever they said or did. Okay, well that didn't work out too well either. That didn't help me in my life to actually go with this anger that I'm feeling. Did not help. So mindfulness, through regular practice, gives us this awareness that I'm different from my mind, I'm different than my thoughts, I am not my feelings, I am not my thoughts, I am not my desires. I can actually observe them and be aloof from them. Right? I don't have to be swept away by them. So this is the beginning of giving me some freedom from the harassing mind. I ignore those thoughts in the mind which are not useful to me. Or as described in the Bhagavad Gita, I learn to tolerate the mind. I learn to tolerate it. Maybe this is easy to understand if you've ever had children. Anyone here had children? When they're toddlers, You remember back to those days, or maybe you're going through that now. They do what in Australia is called chuck wobblies. You know what chucking a wobbly is? I'm sure it's quite descriptive even if you've not had children. You can be in a supermarket and they want something. It could be Nathan's chocolate on the shelf there, and they want it, and that's not what you're shopping for. You're not shopping for chocolate or toy or whatever it might be. And they become so angry that they just throw themselves on the ground. Their legs and arms are flailing everywhere, and clothes are being ripped off, and all kinds of things happen. So as an experienced parent, you learn, of course you have to do something, but every time they chuck a wobbly, you don't get completely overwhelmed and just, you learn that they do this. This is what children do at this age, and you learn to tolerate them, and you calmly, hopefully, calmly try to help them deal with the situation. So we are advised to tolerate the demands of the mind, not to go with the demand, not to fight with the mind and try to overcome it, in arm wrestling, because the mind will always win, but to actually tolerate it, to ignore it, to be aware of it. So this is a genuine spiritual practice. But what I'd like to bring into this, according to yoga wisdom, this is not the ultimate solution or the deepest form of meditation. There is a deeper aspect to meditation than this observing of the ever-changing mind. And I'll use a little bit of it's only slightly gross, if that's all right, if I have your permission to be slightly gross. So we're comparing the bucket, the water into it, to the mind, and it's full of water, right? So we'll keep the analogy that the mind is like a bucket. But now the bucket is not full of water. It's full of shit. It's a crap load. It's a bucket of crap, right? Stinky, smelly, not fun. So the mind also can be full of a lot of weird stuff. Again, I know this is not just me. The mind can propose all kind of weird shit. Anyone game to own up to that? You don't have to. You know that the mind has put forward and continues to put forward all kind of stuff that if anyone else saw it, you would be completely ashamed and run away somewhere. And if someone could actually read your mind, you would run away from them, because they would actually see this dark stuff that is in the mind sometimes. Or not. I'd like to, and maybe you go through some horrible scenario in your mind. And all kind of, I don't know, how graphic shall we get? All kind of sexual perversions and different things that the mind can and does come up with. So we can actually say that the mind, like you even say that to people, don't you? He's just so full of shit. Right? Am I getting a little bit too out there? Or are you coming along for the ride with me? And where is that? It's in the mind. These weird, bizarre, unhelpful, negativity, etc., etc., etc. So now this is the content of the mind. So in our practice of mindfulness, we are taught and practice, let me simply be aloof from this shit and watch it. What do you think? Let me watch the shit. Is that like a lot of fun? Do you think? Is that the solution to the problems of life? Being able to step back and realize, I am not the bucket of shit. I am not the bucket, and I am not the content of the bucket. I am the watcher of the bucket. You understand what I'm saying? There's a bucket here, and it's full of crap. And I'm sitting here, and I'm watching it. It's swirling around, and there's flies in it, and different things, right? is that the goal of life, and is that the goal of meditation? Yoga says no. Yoga says this is one step in the journey of meditation, and you don't need to stay there. So again, I could come back to the analogy of trying to empty this bucket full of crap. So maybe you get your hand in there and start scooping it out. Or you tip it upside down and you get rid of a lot of it, but there is still crap stuck to the bottom, to the sides, around the edges, around the rim. Right? Are you understanding what I'm saying as far as how it's connected to the mind and different practices? Okay, cool. So yoga says this: the solution to a mind which is full of crap, which is undermining my happiness, my peacefulness, is what? Can anyone think of any way, better than trying to empty the bucket, better than simply standing there watching the bucket? Does anyone have any handyman or handy person, handy woman here, who might actually have another way of dealing with this bucket of crap? What else could we do? What other options are there? Clean it. Wash it. That's exactly right. So if we put a hose in that bucket and we turn the water on, initially there is more crap than water. But there is a little bit of clean water in there, but it's, right? If you continue to leave the hose running, what will happen over time? The crap will be cleansed and it will be replaced with clean water. The mind. So by purifying or cleansing the mind is a deeper solution than simply looking at the mind. Is that understandable? Does anyone, you get what I'm trying to say here? This is the practice of what we're doing here tonight. So the mind, it's hassling me, it's interfering with my peace in life, it's full of all this stuff, etc., etc. So what we want to do is replace the crap with something which is transcendentally positive. The hose, the water. This is what mantra is. We actually, let's say meditation means to focus one pointedly. So, all right. So we focus on the mantra because the sound is not just a distraction for the mind temporarily to give us a little bit of relief because, we're sick of watching the mind, and the mantra actually has the effect that, at least I'm kind of not absorbed in watching the shit. I've now got something else that I'm doing. It actually has a far deeper impact than that. It has the same impact as the hose put in the bucket and the tap turned on. So these mantras are not simply distractions for the mind. They purify and cleanse the mind of the crap because of their spiritual nature. So meditation meaning to focus one pointedly. As we also did in our earlier meditation, and I'm sure if not all, most people here have some inclination to understand that there is something more to me than my body and my mind. I am the, as we did in our earlier meditation, who is watching? It is I, the person who is watching, who is different than the body and mind. So I am that eternal spiritual self, not the body, not the mind, not the thoughts. So I am spiritual in essence. That is my nature. So I, the spiritual being, need to one-pointedly focus upon that which is transcendent, that which is spiritual. And it will, by doing so, it will bring relief, more than relief, but it begins by bringing about a state of inner peace, which is there whether I am, meditating at this moment, formally or not. It will actually gradually purify the heart, it's described, the heart and the mind of all of these unwanted things. So this is the beauty of mantra meditation. And we also understand and can directly experience that it brings about a taste, a sweetness, a spiritual nourishment. It's described as we actually begin to taste the nectar, the sweetness that we are looking for in life. This is to be found in the practice of meditation upon that absolute reality in the form of transcendental sound. So that absolute truth, maybe we can explore this more next week because it will take too long to do so now. How do I meditate upon this absolute truth or this absolute reality? How do I meditate upon the Supreme or upon God? It's a very abstract idea perhaps to us at this moment. So we'll explore it more next time. But we can actually meditate on the supreme absolute truth in the form of transcendental sound. These mantras that we meditate with, that we chant and sing, these are non-different than that absolute truth or that absolute reality or God. They are not material sounds to distract the mind. They actually purify the mind and the heart, and they give us a taste for that spiritual happiness because of this connection to the divine, to the Supreme Soul, which is experienced through the practice of meditation upon transcendental sound. We can actually find that peace, that joy, that satisfaction, that happiness, that contentment in our life as we journey through life. This is the actual benefit of the very simple, seemingly too simple practice, for instance, of kirtan that we're doing. Auntie Lila has a very beautiful voice, the drumming's nice, everything's very pleasant. But actually there is something far more profound which is actually taking place that may not immediately meet our eyes or our ears. It is because of the nature of transcendental sound. So this is actual meditation. Maybe I can read something. That will wrap it up, and then we can get back into some meditation. Okay, so this is from chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Here Krishna is saying, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. So not meditation simply on the mind and its content, not meditation on a candle, on a flower. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Krishna goes on to say, that stage of perfection is called samadhi or trance, when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind. So all these things, if you listen carefully, the mind, which is full of crap, it's not like we get rid of the mind or try to kill the mind through drugs or some kind of other practice. So he said this is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from the miseries arising from material contact. So please consider, because yoga is not about accepting something blindly. It is actually a process of questioning, considering, meditating, going through life, experiencing what our life is like and what happens, and by regular meditation practice, what result comes about from that. And this way our life can actually become one of full satisfaction, meaning, purpose, joy, etc. So let us continue. Thank you so much.